Hello, I'm Christina Brown, and this is Our Take on Arise TV, a talk show focused on the topics and stories related and of interest to women. And back today as my guest co-host is Eunice Amole. You might remember Eunice. She joined us here on our debut week of Our Take. Thank you so much for coming back. Eunice Amole was actually a first runner-up on the show Apprentice Africa. You have a background in real estate and in finance, doing a little bit of everything. And now she is a contributing writer for the online magazine Applause Africa. Plus, she works with nonprofit organizations that help prepare women for the workplace. Thank you so much, Eunice, for coming back. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. This is exciting.
And you, like I said, you were on the show Apprentice Africa, and for so many of the viewers who are here based in the U.S., we're all familiar with the NBC program Apprentice. And of course, I'm assuming the Africa edition is modeled the same way.
The same exact format. I mean, we had contestants all over the diaspora, from the U.S., UK, as well as those on the continent from, Uganda, Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, of course. So it was exactly the same. It was a really great run, and yeah.
And you came close. Very close.
I mean, it could have gone either way. I was, one of two finalists, obviously. So it was really great to be in that position, be in that role. But ultimately, I didn't win. But I left feeling like I won.
And you've really been able to make a lot out of the exposure that you got from appearing on the show. And I know one of the areas that are of real significant interest to you is empowering women for the workforce.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about your work, particularly with the Dress for Success program.
Yes, I mean, I just started as a recent initiative that I took, just really giving back to the community. I mean, there's no better feeling than having to wear something that you feel so confident in. It definitely changes your mindset, changes your attitude, and thus ultimately changing how you perform in the workplace, how you perform in interviews, and how you present yourself, period, to your friends, to your world. Yeah. So for me, it's a really great experience having to share my experiences to, number of different women, not only in New York City, but all across the country. So. And
I'm really glad that you brought up that important point about making women feel empowered and comfortable as they enter, or in some cases, re-enter the workforce. One of the areas that we're actually going to be focusing on today's episode is actually part of a 3-part series. It's called Women in the Digital World.
Wonderful.
And we're going to be talking to 3 pioneers, particularly in the tech industry, that are doing all they can to get more women, but specifically women of color involved in the tech industry, and I'm sure that you'll have some really good insights and thoughts about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot to talk about today. Let us first start off with our daily take stories, a look at the news and views headlines. First of all, President Obama did wrap up his visit to Africa with another president. This one, George W. Bush and former First Lady Laura Bush were in Tanzania for a women's conference where First Lady Michelle Obama spoke at the summit of the Wives of African Leaders. It's actually part of a 2-day women's conference. You see former First Lady Laura Bush now. The former First Ladies, as well as, I mentioned, First Lady Michelle Obama, all spoke of their role as well as influence that they have as First Ladies. But they used that opportunity to urge the First Ladies of Africa to use their position to usher in change for their people. The First Ladies also both commiserated about how difficult it can be to speak about substantive issues, especially when most people are focused on their wardrobe and hair. This is actually the last stop in Tanzania, followed by the Obama's trip to Senegal and South Africa. And it sounds cute, right? It sounds kind of cute to talk about the fact, yes, when it comes to Michelle Obama, there's probably more attention given to her bangs than some of the issues that are important to her. But they do raise a very, very good point. And it also kind of speaks to your work as well, in terms of the amount of tension that is put on women when it comes to their appearance. Sometimes it gets lost when it comes to the message.
It's all about your image, to be quite honest. And I mean, it affects how women can even be promoted in the workplace. It affects how people are even perceived on the street. It affects how people even, decide whether or not they even want to deal with you, sell you a house or sell you, anything. But yeah, I mean, there's such importance on how you present yourself to the world that it just matters. And that's why Dress for Success is so important to me, because I feel like so many women, get it, but they don't. I mean, it's so important for you to have in the back of your mind that the moment you leave your house, again, you don't have a second chance at a first impression. It means a lot. So I commend Michelle Obama and also Laura Bush for being out there on the continent and, you know, really raising a lot of the issues, the causes
the
on
awareness
the continent.
and also the platform and influence of the role that First Ladies have. Now, I understand that your family is originally from Nigeria, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have visited Nigeria on more than a few occasions.
Yeah,
okay.
like I've worked, lived in Nigeria. I mean, just the fact that they are making Africa a priority is just exciting for me, especially now that Obama has decided to take this initiative to power Africa. I mean, we're now seeing an initiative across sub-Saharan Africa to have electricity. I mean, having it go in and out, I mean, it just
it's
causes
something that we would take for granted here in the U.S., but the reality is it is so important and so crucial.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, a lot more stories to discuss, Eunice. This one, unfortunately, not necessarily a pleasant sight. This is out of Egypt, where Egyptians there continue to line the streets in front of the presidential palace in Cairo. Egypt's powerful armed forces issued a virtual ultimatum to Islamist President Mohamed Morsi on Monday, calling on the nation's feuding politicians to agree on an inclusive roadmap for the country's future within 48 hours. Anti-Morsi demonstrators gathered in Tahrir Square to continue their protest by waving flags and chanting. Now, the main opposition, National Salvation Front, which has demanded a national unity government for months, applauded the military's position. That's a very tricky and dicey situation indeed. President Morsi, of course, being one of the first elected official in Egypt. Now his ouster being called for by these images, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, he's literally fighting for legitimacy right now with his own people. I mean, it's been about a year now, and unfortunately, he's basically found himself to be in a really isolated position. You have ministers that are just resigning left and right. You have the people, the opposition demands. I mean, these are just basic demands. I mean, we're talking about electricity. Right now, it's just going in and out. We're talking about rising fuel prices, rising food prices.
And we're also seeing these images play out in a number of different places, whether we're talking about Syria, whether we're talking about Turkey, or if we're talking about even the unrest in Brazil.
Yeah.
We're seeing the so-called little guy, right, take to the streets and demand more from its government, or in this case, the ousting of its presidential leader.
Yeah, it's actually unnerving seeing how across all these different regions, this unrest and people are just demanding their basic rights, to be quite honest. I mean, what's going on right now in Egypt it's really disheartening. I know Obama, made a phone call to Morsi to really address those demands. I mean, these are basic demands. They've been through a lot within the last year.
Whether or not they get met will certainly be the next question, and whether or not the question of military rule is necessarily the best next position, I think remains to be seen. A little closer to home, though, Arise TV and Our Take has continuing coverage of the killing of Trayvon Martin, the George Zimmerman trial. It is now day 2 of week 2 of testimony, and the judge today agreed to strike the testimony of the lead investigator who, under questioning, thought that Zimmerman's account of his fight with Trayvon Martin was credible. But Judge Deborah Nelson believes the jury should decide if Zimmerman's recounting is credible. We are certainly seeing this trial move at what seems to be a very steady, I won't quite say rapid, but steady pace. It seems like Deborah Nelson is keeping everything on point. We know last week we heard from 15 witnesses. It seemed like, as one person put it, the human side of the testimony is what was heard last week. This week, however, we're hearing more from the scientists. We're hearing more from the people who are analyzing the crime scene or analyzing the 911 tapes. I'm curious as to what your thoughts have been since this trial has started.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it hasn't been going at a rapid pace, but definitely I see, the development as the case really just pans itself out. And there are just a couple things out of the testimony, and especially Zimmerman's narrative about his account of what happened that night.
They don't line up with the pictures.
It doesn't. It's very inconsistent. The fact that he said that he got out of his car to jot down the street sign, it's like, really, you're the neighborhood captain. You need to get out your car to, pass that information on to authorities. So a lot of the things that he said in his narrative and versus what actually happened that was recorded by the police is just really inconsistent. So I definitely am interested and plan to continue to keep posted on this.
Yes, this is certainly not a trial that seems to be wrapping up anytime soon, at least not in the next day or so. Well, this story, I'm sure, Eunice, will pique your interest, as it will for millions of students across the nation. Paying for college just got more expensive for many, many students. And that is because the interest rates on certain student loans doubled thanks to inaction, shocking, by Congress. The rate on subsidized government loans jumped from 3.4% to 6.8%. Now, this is important. The increase does not apply to existing loans, only to the new ones, but that's affecting about 7.5 million borrowers. Now, we will have to wait and see if Congress passes retroactive legislation when they return from the July 4th break. And I heard you say once, Eunice, that you and Sallie Mae were best friends.
Oh, in fact, just yesterday, when I got the news that this hike was going to happen, I immediately called them to find out, does this affect my loans? I mean, you have millions of students who are grappling with student loans already, and then for the government to, automatically add this increase, literally doubling it, you're sending millions of, would-be students out of school.
And I think part of the reason why it stings that much more is the fact that this is due to congressional inaction. The fact that this is something.
This may just be subjected to some Republican filibuster in July. I think it's due. I think it's
July 10th.
Yeah. So next week we're going to hear the latest. So hopefully we can, get it together and just, help the country through this process.
Because we have some interest rates to deal with. All
yes.
right. Well, thank you so much, Eunice, for joining me here for the Daily Take.
Thank
Great
you.
job. And we are on Facebook and Twitter. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter by simply going to @OurTake, Arise TV. But you can also like and leave comments on our Facebook page by heading to Our Take on Arise TV. And I'm Christina Brown, and you are watching Our Take.
Bigger, stronger, and more domineering than any other. Elephants are the centers of the animal kingdom, but unfortunately today, they're under attack. Tens of thousands are being killed each year just for their ivory. So please support conservation and never buy products made from ivory, because when the buying stops, the killing can too.
24 seconds. That's what you get to make it happen. You can run the break, find the big man inside, or swing it out and hit the 3. Grab the board, and you get a new 24, just like that. But unfortunately, for endangered animals, there's no reset. Many are now facing extinction. And when their clock runs out, they're gone forever. So please, support conservation and never buy products made from these animals. There's no more time to waste.
I came to Africa to see this. But I also found this. Every year, thousands of elephants are being killed just for their tusk. If we buy ivory, we're just helping the poacher. So please, don't do it, because when the buying stops, the killing can too.
Basketball, it's a numbers game. But just listen to these numbers.
1 in 3 adults in this country are at risk of developing diabetes.
1 in 3.
Just think about what that looks like in here. Our families,
our friends,
our fans.
Let's change those numbers.
Learn your risk factors for diabetes.
Go to dribble2stopdiabetes.com and take the risk test.
It's fast, free, and easy.
Remember, your health depends on you. To learn more, go to dribble2stopdiabetes.com.
We are crossing the color line with 2 women, one black and the other white, both graduates of a historically black school. And we want to hear from you on Facebook and Twitter. Please join the conversation at #OurTakeAriseTV. And remember to leave your comments on our Facebook page, Our Take on Arise TV. Well, my guest co-host, Eunice Amola, and I welcome a young singer whose debut song and video garnered a lot of attention, but not necessarily for the best reasons. 22-year-old Jillian Parker wrote the song Mr. Football and filmed the music video on the historical black campus of Howard University, a school where she attended both undergrad and graduate school. Thank you, Jillian, for joining us today. Also with her, Mr. Football, he's not quite Mr. Football himself. I'm not going to take take anything away from you, Malcolm. But Malcolm Crawford was in the music video, Mr. Football. He's also proudly a Howard University alum who, as I mentioned, was in the music video. The two are here to discuss the backlash around the song and video. But before we get to the conversation, why don't we just take a listen and we'll discuss it on the back end, okay?
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's hear Mr. Football.
Mr. Football, 6'4" tall, captain running back to me. He's got every girl at his fingertips, but acts like he don't give a damn. They said be careful and they said just stay away, 'cause when no one is around, he'll crawl up inside your heart. But when he walks out, you'll have to tear it all apart. Now I don't believe that anybody can be so perfect. I know that it's my turn and I deserve this. He says he won't leave me, that I'm worth it.
And that was Jillian Parker, the songwriter, singer, and star of the music video, Mr. Football. Malcolm, where were you? I think if we blinked, we missed you. You were in the video, right?
I was in the video.
He was in the beginning.
You were in the way back.
I was in the front for like 1 second.
For like a second.
Yeah, I starred Mr. Football #1.
All right.
Football
okay.
player #1. That was me.
Mr. Football is actually Tavon Sheets, and Tavon was planning on joining us here today, but guess what? He's on the football field practicing, and so unfortunately he can't be here today. Jillian, you wrote this song. Tell me again, was it 2011, 2012?
Yes, it is the summer of 2011.
Is it an autobiographical song?
Yes, it was based on a true story. It was definitely my perspective of it. I mean, if there was a Mrs. Lacrosse, I'm sure it would look different. But yeah, it was based off a true story that summer.
What made you decide to shoot the video on the campus of Howard University?
Well, I'm a very proud student. I've been very involved in the community at Howard, and I love my school, and I love my friends, and I wanted my video to be representative of where I went to school and my home. So.
And when you posted the video, initially, what were you thinking the feedback would be like?
I honestly didn't even expect that many people to even watch it, but then on day 4 it was like 64,000 people, and I was in shock, and I had no idea that I was even going to have anyone watch it. I figured, you know, I was really rooting for like 500.
And next thing you know, you've got 64,000 people watching your video.
Yeah.
But you had one person who saw the video in particular who took issue with it. Specifically, she took issue with the interracial depiction of the relationship. What did you think when you first heard of Jamilah Lemieux's article and really taking you to task for not only writing the song, but more specifically producing the video on the campus of Howard?
I was horrified when I first found out, and that's when I called Malcolm.
How did you find out?
Actually, I was working. I'm a boat painter, so I was working at the yard, and I had like 60 texts, and no one texts me. So I ended up looking at my texts, and my teammates and a bunch of people were blowing up my phone. And so when I wrote them, they were like, "Oh, it's this article, and we got you." And I honestly had no idea, so I had to wait till I was done working. And then when I checked the computer, I was like, saw the pictures, and I was like, "Oh wow, an article!" And then I read it, and then I was like humiliated. I was horrified, but I had Malcolm, and I had my friends. They were so supportive, and it just made it. It ended up being a blessing in disguise, I think, in the long run.
And I should point out that Jamilah Lemieux writes, first of all, she is a Howard University alum. One of the things that she wrote about is she says that Howard University is a mecca. It is where black women go to school and they feel empowered, they feel validated. Did you in any way, shape, or form understand the perspective that she was presenting?
I read her article, and I definitely, I understand where she's coming from. Howard is known for being a place for
it's a historically black university.
Black yeah, and so I understand where she was coming from. I understand her point of view on the subject, on the matter of that there can be negative stereotypes and things like that. However, I don't. As the more I watched my own video like 100 times trying to figure out where I went wrong, and I I just didn't see how my video could portray Black people in a negative light in the way that she was speaking of.
Malcolm, what did you think?
Well, when I read the article, it seemed like the way she was referring to Howard, she was referring to it more as a social club instead of the fact that it's an institution for learning. So with that, it comes with a variety of people who want to seek that education. With that being Howard, like everyone wants to try to get the Howard education, but she was going with the social, how it was a social club and how we interact socially with the Black community instead of going there for our education.
Jillian, I'm curious as to why you selected Howard, a historically Black university, as a place to go to not only graduate school, but also undergrad.
Yeah. Well, I was actually transferring teams, and we played Howard. And the Howard lacrosse team, something about them is that they never give up. And while they are at a disadvantage a lot of times with recruiting, they just never give up. So when we played against them and I was looking for a new team, I just loved the passion and I loved the team camaraderie, and I just needed to be a part of it. And so when I was looking for teams, I got a call from the coach, and she invited me there on scholarship. And so, I took the opportunity, and it ended up being like the best decision I've ever made. So.
Had you ever attended any kind of school or been in any program in which you were the minority, so were you familiar with the kind of social surroundings that you were going to face at Howard?
No, I'm from Bristol, Rhode Island, so I actually know. And when I went to Howard, it was a culture shock. It was definitely a new experience, but it was just so much greater than I would ever have anticipated. So I was blessed.
We see in the music video that you're obviously surrounded by a number of different people. I'm assuming that these were all your friends.
Yeah.
What kind of conversations did you go into this video with your friends? Did any of them have any kind of perspective on what the response might be like with that kind of image, the image of you with an African-American boyfriend?
Honestly, no. When I first came up with the idea, I just knew I needed to make a music video, and it was something I had to do. And so when I called everyone and I told everyone my idea, they were so excited and so thrilled to help out, and everyone just wanted to be a part of it. And most of them were there for when Mr. Football occurrence actually happened. So they were super supportive, because it ended up being like a very, like an underdog kind of story, and then you get to make a video,
But there are some people, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, for full disclosure, my dad went to Howard, so I'm very familiar with, the HU network. I was born and raised in DC, so having said that, a lot of people, especially my dad and generations before him, really put Howard to, a specific standard as far as like education, things like that. So when situations come up like this, you start to question. So I wonder, how would you address people who wonder, what your intent was for really going to Howard and, subsequently creating a video after you graduated?
Well, I went to Howard for lacrosse, and I wanted to make a video with my friends. And so I guess when people question me on the video, it really was just a story, and I would love to be a singer. I'm really trying. My demo's recently finished, and I just really want to be a singer. So the fact that I used Howard and my friends is secondary to like the real, like the goal was to make a music video. And
in the same vein, I read articles about how you felt so unique being at Howard. You felt like there was a sense of notoriety, and how you were different. Did that come into play, you think, on whether or not to put a video like this together? Like, was this like some way of you springboarding into a music career that you were always thinking about having?
No, I wouldn't say so. That article was one of my friend's papers, and so it wasn't really quite exactly, I think, in context, but I do feel like at Howard, you do have a chance. You stick out. My name is very simple. It's Jill. So most people.
I think you're going to stick out for other reasons.
Yeah, but we're going to go with that.
But Jill, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to that question. But Malcolm, while we have you for this segment, I'm curious as to the kind of feedback that you've gotten, because I've read some comments that said, why were the Black guys part of this video? How dare they? What kind of feedback did you get?
Well, from campus, what I really heard, there wasn't any negative feedback for the video so much. It was mainly the article. Like, people were disappointed that it was a Howard alumni saying this stuff, because we were saying, like, what she was saying was, like, hindering the growth of Howard. Like, even though it's an institution, it pretty much has its own life. And with that life comes changes, comes evolution. And, like, what I heard most was, like, she's really hurting that change by saying like it needs to stay how it is, it needs to be exclusive, and like she was just putting this label on it as maybe like blacks only, no interaction from any outside cultures or anything like that. And like a lot of people were just disappointed just from that article, being from a Howard alumni.
I wonder from...
Well, I'm sorry, Eunice. Unfortunately, we have to wrap this up, but we will continue the conversation. Malcolm Crawford, Jillian Parker. Malcolm, thank you so much for joining the conversation and your appearance in the Mr. Football. I might have to watch the video a couple more times, but I know I will see you. All right?
Football player number one.
Yeah, football player number one. All right. Look out for football player number one, and you are watching Our Take.
Ndingululu Chumsila. Mna ndingumama owasindayo kwi-cancer. I-cancer eyayisisibelekweni. Thina bantu, imistake yethu apha ikhoyo. Kwawuthiwa umuntu une-cancer. Simjongela uba laa mntu ngomso uzosweleka. Andizange ndibe nabunzima kakhulu. Ngoba into ebangela uba nditsho, eyam yabhaqwa msinyane. Ngoba into enyanzelekileyo kuba ube nethemba xa kuthiwa unento. Isapoti endayifumanayo kumyeni wam, kubantwana bam, nefemeli yam yonke. Eyona nto ndandinayo mna entliziyweni yam kukuba okusalayo nam ndizophila ndifane nabanye abantu.
Lo myalezo niwuphathelwe yi-JSI and Livestrong Cancer Anti-Stigma Initiative.
I am Joseph Yobo. Having malaria as a top footballer can be a challenge to my career. This is why I make sure I and my family sleep inside treated nets to protect us from malaria.
My name is Victor Moses. My fellow mate, can you believe? One mosquito net of 1,200 only can save 33,600 naira in 1 year that you would have spent on mosquito sprays.
I am Vincent Enyama. Since my family started sleeping inside treated nets, we don't have to worry about malaria.
My name is Stephen Keshi. Malaria is a serious condition that can destroy the dream of becoming a football superstar.
This makes me a real man. What about you?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Come on, let's kick malaria out of Nigeria once and for all.
Our Take continues our discussion with singer and songwriter Jillian Parker. Jillian wrote the song and starred in the music video, Mr. Football, filmed on the campus of her alma mater and historically black school, Howard University. Now my guest co-host, Eunice Amole, and I welcome Jamilah Lemieux, who also graduated from Howard and has a less than favorable opinion about the video. Lemieux is an editor for Ebony Magazine and wrote an article about the video and the message it sends. And joining us via Skype from New Jersey is Brittany Cooper, who is an assistant professor at Rutgers University of Women's and Gender Studies and Africana Studies. By the way, Dr. Cooper is also a graduate of Howard. Oh my gosh.
Full disclosure. I love it.
Eunice, by the way, her dad graduated from Howard, yes. Professor Cooper. Before we start the conversation, I want us to listen to Jillian's video one more time. This is Mr. Football. Let's take a listen.
'Cause when no one is around, he'll crawl up inside your heart. But when he walks out, you'll have to tear it all apart. Now I don't believe that anybody can be so perfect. I know that it's my turn, and I deserve this. He says he won't leave me, that I'm worth it. And baby runs back to me, runs back to me, runs back to me.
And that is Jillian Parker singing her song, Mr. Football. Jamilah Lemieux, thank you for joining us today. You wrote a piece that has really just spread like wildfire online about this video. One of the things that you say about Howard, you say, it is not the place where white girls go to find desirable men. In a world where black girls are often made to feel less desirable, my alma mater is a space in which sisters are the norm. At Howard, the majority of the handsome straight boys on campus are checking for excuse me. At Howard, we are the standard of beauty. Black moms send their boys there hoping they'll bring home nice young sisters after their heart. You don't hear all the athletes here like white girls. Jamilah, there are some that would say they send their kids to school to get an education.
Yeah, sure. There are some that would say that. And there are some that would say that they send their children to become developed and nurtured as individuals and to come to understand their role and their responsibilities in the Black community. Some of those men will find love and partnership with Black women. Some of them will find it with white women. My article and criticism of the video was not a takedown of interracial dating. It was about what that video meant and what seeing those images on the campus of Howard University meant to me and to a lot of other young Black women who went to Howard, who are familiar with Howard and other HBCUs. So, I do need to put this out there that no matter what I say in this conversation, for so many people, I'm already the big, mad, angry Black woman, right? Like, no matter how self-satisfied I am in life, no matter how pleasant I am, no matter the fact that I don't have a personal issue with this young lady for making a song, she is a Bison, we have that connection, we will have that connection forever.
And by Bison, you mean by Howard University, Boston.
By Bison.
Just for those who may not understand what that was about.
Like, it's a whole Howard family thing going, right? But, you know, we share the same alma mater, we love our school. However, images matter, and Black spaces have a right to exist. It's something that a young woman said to me the other day when we were talking about the article. And I have no problem defending anything that I said in that article. I don't discount her right to go to Howard. I don't discount her right to date while at Howard. But when I looked at that video, those images were very uncomfortable.
Jillian, I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. I know that my school is a historical Black university. I am aware. However, in my video, I portrayed, when I was talking to my my videographer, Akin, I was like, you have to portray him like a god, like the best thing that ever existed, because I need this person, this man, to be something that every girl could dream about. And so in the video, I made sure that he's my best friend. He is literally like a brother to me. And the thing is I portrayed him in my eyes and in the eyes of everyone that were involved as being a very attractive, very educated, a very gentleman. He took me on dates. And in the lyrics it actually says, and all these girls with a thirst as they swing by your room running plays to win. But while they're on the attack, you've been deaf to protect what we have, so I'm on your sideline. So I made reference to the fact that, you know, he doesn't just, you know, as you said, I'm painting him poorly and as promiscuous, but he didn't, in my eyes, like, I made it very clear that he was a very respectable guy who was in love with someone else that wasn't me.
I don't have any questions about the respectability of men who attend Howard University. I think that most of them are good, upstanding, thoughtful, intelligent, articulate, you know, caring men. But those images transcended you, and they transcended what Howard is in 2013, and they transcended him. And I'm sad that you graduated from Howard and didn't recognize any of what I saw wrong with the video, and that you took it from what I read in your comments. And I didn't respond to them there because it wasn't the appropriate place for me to respond to you in the comment section of our site. But I felt that you took it personally, and my article wasn't about you. It was about that imagery. And so it does not matter what your intention was. When we see pretty little white girl in a white dress and a big Black football player and the Black girl coming out the room looking like they just did something. Yeah. As an artist, as an aspiring artist, you have to be aware of what imagery means.
And on that note, I don't want to cut you off, but I do want to bring someone else into the conversation, and that is Professor Brittany Cooper. Professor Cooper, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you so much for returning to Our Take. I understand that you've been able to listen to both segments and you've been listening to the conversation. And we just heard Jamilah Lemieux say that her criticism of the song and of the video was not a personal attack on Jillian Parker, but it was about the imagery, and it was about and we all know, right, the power of the images. But in talking to Jillian, we are also hearing from someone who simply does not see what some other people saw in that imagery. And I want you, if you can, to speak to that, please.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to be on the show with fellow Bison. So hi, ladies.
Hi.
So I think that what really is important here is that context matters. And so what's at tension is Jillian's right to have an individual collegiate experience, which involves dating, which involves the full sort of social context of Howard. At the same time, understanding that our dating choices, our romantic choices don't happen in a political and historical vacuum. And that's one of the things that I think that Howard is actually wonderful about instilling in students. And so in the last segment, Christina, you panned to a shot of the Howard campus and you panned to a shot of Frederick Douglass Hall, a place where I took many courses. Now, Frederick Douglass's second wife was a white woman. And this was in the 1870s. And Black women acted a fool with Frederick Douglass about marrying this white woman. And there's a great quote from Ida B. Wells where she says, "I wish that Frederick Douglass had married a charming, brave, upstanding Black woman. But I absolutely respect the woman that he chose to marry because his second wife, Helen Pitts Douglas, had wonderful race politics." And so the pain that Jamilah speaks to, the discomfort, is actually really long-standing. And it is about the fact that one of the things that I heard you say, Jillian, in the first segment was that in the video, you're kind of the underdog. And on an individual level, if you lose the guy, then sure, maybe you're the underdog. But in life, as romantic relationships and beauty politics and sexual politics go, white women are never the underdog. Black women always are. And that context is the way in which many Black women, not all, but many Black women will engage your video. And so much like the women of Frederick Douglass's day, they will say, as I would say and many others would say, this is not about right or wrong. This is not about the choices being wrong or bad, but it is about a historical context in which Black women's desirability is always at stake. And Black men have a critical role to play in that. And so in short, historical context really does matter. And Black women's pain, Black women's experiences, they also really do matter. And at Howard, you get spoiled when you're a Black student because it's one of the few places in the world and one of the few times in life where Black experience is central and centered and where you can work through a lot of these sort of challenges and feel affirmed on a daily basis. And so there is a sort of protection-based impulse when white students are on the campus. There's a question about what your intent is. And I'm not saying that all of those things are fair, but I'm saying that in terms of historical context, I hope that they're understandable, that it's not about an attack. It's not about putting people on the defensive, but it's about everyone trying to understand the other person's perspective.
And I certainly appreciate your comments, Professor Cooper. I see you, Brittany, smiling. I'm assuming that you probably didn't think that you were signing up for all of this when you made this video. What are your thoughts, having heard from Professor Cooper and from Jamilah?
Honestly, I never said that I didn't understand the viewpoint, but I do understand. I definitely understand. All I was saying is that there was no malice intended in creating this video. So in hindsight, I can understand what you're saying. However, I don't believe
do the video
that it was
the same way again?
I probably would tweak some things, but as a whole, I'm honest. This is a story. All it was a story. And I created this story based on real events that happened. It was actually like a heartbreaking, kind of awful story, and with a happy beat. But honestly, I feel as though the video portrayed exactly what I intended. Now, if we could have changed, his ex-girlfriend to having more clothing, as opposed to, like you said, that in one of your pieces in your article, there's definitely some things that can be tweaked. But for
you're saying that this is your personal story, and if you're going to stay true to your story as an artist, then the video stands. That's what you're saying?
I stand by what I created, and I think that my friends were amazing in helping me. This video, I am a part of Howard. Howard is my home, just like it is anybody else's. I understand the historical significance of being a Black in a historical Black college. But in this day and age, if this video had been made by an all-white cast, no one would have said anything. It's because I am white with a Black man. Now, I understand where you're coming from. However,
I see Jamilah just like waiting. I got to give you an opportunity, and let me give Jamilah an opportunity to respond to that. Go ahead.
Okay, and respectfully, Jillian, I don't think that you understand.
Okay.
And your experiences in this world have not made it easy for you to understand, because at every turn, white women are protected and supported and nurtured. And there were people who don't know either of us who are Black, who had an instinct to protect you from me, from my words.
And I wonder, I wonder, Professor Cooper, if what we're also seeing and hearing is also part of a generational difference as well. I mean, is it possible that Jillian's generation just simply doesn't have the same kind of, black or white, have the same kind of attachment to history, to the lessons? Is that at play here as well?
Absolutely. I was sitting here thinking, I think Jamilah raised this point as well. We're talking about folks who were born in the 90s, and that makes a difference. But what I will say very distinctly, though, is it's not actually a different material reality in terms of race. It's a different perception about what's happening. I mean, we're just a few days removed from a young black girl being attacked for the way that she spoke in public in the Trayvon Martin trial. So notions about race and racism and the ways that they attach to women's bodies are still hyper present. And so much of what happened with Rachel Jeantel was about beauty politics as well, and about a particular kind of desirability. And Christina, if I may just say one point, in the last segment when the young brother was on, I forget his name.
Malcolm.
He said that
Malcolm.
Young brother Malcolm. So he said that. I wanted to push back for young brother Malcolm and just say, the way that he sort of understood these critiques was as though that they were being retrograde, and as though we are trying to take Howard back to a place in the past, and as though Jamilah portrayed Howard as a social club. And the reality is that we're talking about the full nature of the educational experience, and any Howard alum that's honest with you will tell you that we do as much, if not more, learning outside of the classroom in that space as we do in the classroom, and it has been so critical to shaping our full perspectives about who we are. And so there is a generational shift, but as a young professor, I mean, Jamilah and I are not that much older than you guys are, actually.
I was gonna say, how old are you?
I'm 22.
I'm 28, so not generation.
Ladies, listen, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to cut anyone off, but unfortunately, we have completely run out of time. Professor Brittany Cooper joining us from Rutgers University via Skype. Thank you so much for your insight and your perspective. Thank you, Jamilah Lemieux, as well as Jillian Parker, for joining me here in the studio. And thank you so much for your graciousness and your ability to communicate to one another points in which you might have differences of opinion, but yet we can still do it and, not hurt anyone. Thank you both, ladies. I truly appreciate your perspectives.
Thank you.
And you are watching Our Take.
Basketball, it's a numbers game. But just listen to these numbers.
1 in 3 adults in this country are at risk of developing diabetes.
1 in 3.
Just think about what that looks like in here. Our families,
our friends,
our fans.
Let's change those numbers.
Learn your risk factors for diabetes.
Go to DribbletoStopDiabetes.com and take the risk test.
It's fast, free, and easy.
Remember, your health depends on you. To learn more, go to DribbletoStopDiabetes.com.
I wonder why anyone would do that to themselves. We all need air to breathe, to live, and so does the earth. But we're choking it with plastic bags. Let's stop using plastic bags and give the earth a chance to breathe. Refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle.
I came to Africa to see this. But I also found this. Every year, thousands of elephants are being killed just for their tusk. If we buy ivory, we're just helping the poacher. So please, don't do it, because when the buying stops, the killing can too.
Our Take continues our commitment to promoting the accomplishments of women around the globe. And in part 2 of our series, Women in the Digital World, my guest co-host Eunice Amole and I welcome 3 inspirational women blazing a trail in the tech industry. Our first guest is Judith Owiga. Joining us via Skype from Nairobi, Kenya, Judith is co-founder of Akira Chicks, a group dedicated to helping women find professional and share technology tips. Thank you so much for joining us today, Judith. Also with us is Chisenga Muyoya, co-founder of Asikana, which helps get women across Zambia involved in the tech sector, but also went a step further and created an app that tells women about their rights. Chisenga joins us from Lusaka, Zambia. And here with us in New York is Amanatu So, the co-founder of Tech Lady Mafia. That's an organization trying to make the tech industry in the U.S. a lot more inclusive. But I want to first start with Judith, who joins us from Kenya, and Akira Chicks. Why did you feel, Judith, that there was such a need for this in Kenya?
So the first time can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go right ahead, Judith.
Okay, so the first time I was in class, in my computer science class, I was surprised to find only 5 ladies in the class. So that began my journey and my questioning journey of where are the ladies in tech. So throughout university, we were always looked at like oddballs. And then when I started working, I was in a company where we were 5 developers, 4 of us were ladies. And people would constantly ask us, do you really develop code in that company? So there was clearly a view that people had of ladies in technology, and we kind of felt like oddballs. So we decided, why don't we form an organization for us, so that we can just meet, talk about tech, and where we'd feel, normal in our own skin, in our own space, doing what we do best. Yeah, so that's really why we formed Akira Chicks.
And Chisenga joining us from Zambia via Skype as well. I'm curious, did your story sound a little bit like Judith's? Did you find yourself among one of few other women? Chisenga, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I was just asking you, did you yourself find yourself as one of few women working in the tech industry? Is that what prompted you to start your organization?
Yes, the story is very similar, not just in Kenya, but in Zambia and in other African countries as well. We have a case where at the beginning, we start out as maybe 20 girls in a class and maybe 25 or 26 guys. But by the time you get to the final level of completion, you find that you're about 3 girls or even less. So the reason why we started our organization, I started it with 2 of my friends, Ella Mbewe and Regina Mtonga. The reason why we started our organization was because we attended a mobile development boot camp at Bongo Hive, and we were the only 3 girls, and it was a very large group of guys. So we began to wonder why women are not coming forward and actively participating in the ICT sector.
Amanatu, we're certainly hearing a story that we've heard a lot in the U.S., the shortage of women and more specifically the women of color in this industry. What are you finding that makes it so difficult for women to penetrate these career fields?
My story is very similar to the other 2 women that you've profiled here today. But I think that where we diverge is that I would keep hearing all these crazy statistics about how there are no women in technology, and in some industries in the very low digits. And what was really shocking to me was that even the women that are there, we don't talk about. And so the issue of representation started coming to mind for me, and modeling, and saying, who are the models for women in technology? Who are the ones that we are quoting there? And I come from a PR background, so telling stories was something that was very natural to me. And so the Tech Lady Mafia, we go out of our way to find the women who are there and to tell their stories, because you hear this across the spectrum of, any minority group, is that when you have one person, people can model themselves after that person and see themselves there.
I'm sorry, ladies. Unfortunately, we are running short on time. I do want to bring this up. Aminatou, you actually used your organization to push Facebook to actually change the way that it was doing business. Just very briefly, talk about what you did, and then I just want to quickly go to Chisenga so she can talk about the app that they've provided for women. Again, just quickly, tell me what you're able to do with Facebook.
That's actually an action that is run through Women, Action, and the Media, WAM. It has multiple chapters in the United States, and so online, WAM, which I'm part of the Action Advisory Group, we organized against having sexist advertising on Facebook, and we found that it was a real pressure point. Women and men online were outraged that they had to encounter this content, and that's another barrier to get women into technology.
But you were able to use your experience and knowledge of technology to do that. And Chisenga, very quickly, I understand that you have developed an app that actually informs women throughout Zambia about their rights. Can you just very quickly tell me about that, how you were able to move that forward?
Okay, so we began the process by holding a hackathon, which we held at Bongo High, where we asked people from different fields to come in and share their views. And we did a little survey amongst our members to find out how many people actually are aware of their rights as women, and we found that most people weren't. So we developed this app. Can you see that?
I can see it. I mean, I see the smartphone, but I believe you. You've got an app, and it's telling women what their rights are.
Yes, so, and the girls within a kind of network are the ones who developed the app. The girls who receive training from Zamrise in mobile development. So the app just shows what particular right you have. Like it'll say, I have the right to XYZ, and what legislation backs up that particular right in our country.
Ladies, I have to say that it is such a distinct honor to meet you all. Judith Awiga joining us from Nairobi, Kenya, as well as Chisenga Muyoha joining us from Zambia, and Aminatou So here in the New York studio, as well as Eunice Amole. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You have to come back. I'm sorry, the time just seems to run out. Women in the Digital World, part of our 3-part series. Ladies, more power to you. I'm Christina Brown, and you're watching Our Take.
Ndingululu Chumsila. Mna ndingumama owasindayo kwi-cancer. I-cancer eyayisisibelekweni. Thina bantu, imistake yethu apha ikhoyo. Kwawuthiwa umuntu une-cancer. Simjongela uba laa mntu ngomso uzosweleka. Andizange ndibe nabunzima kakhulu. Ngoba into ebangela uba nditsho, eyam yabhaqwa msinyane, ngoba into enyanzelekileyo kuba ube nethemba xa kuthiwa unento. Isapoti endayifumanayo kumyeni wam, kubantwana bam, nefemeli yam yonke. Eyona nto ndandinayo mna entliziyweni yam kukuba okusalayo nam ndizophila ndifane nabanye abantu.
Lo myalezo niwuphathelwe yi-JSI and Live Strong Cancer Anti-Stigma Initiative.
It is now time to go from our take to your take. We want to hear from you and see what you have been up to online, and here's what our Twitter friends have been saying. Hillary Crosley says, I had a ball. Thanks for having me. And that is, of course, Hillary Crosley, New York bureau chief for TheRoot.com. We had her here yesterday. She helped us discuss all of the stories that were in our Daily Take headlines. Hillary, we liked having you as well, and we certainly hope you will come back again. This tweet comes from Marit PR. I'm glad everyone on Arise, at our Take Arise TV keeps reiterating that Trayvon Martin was a child. I still cannot believe his death is still being debated. Another tweet, this one saying, so great to see this. I've been searching for a show of this magnitude for some time, for us and by us. And of course, we appreciate any and every viewer who tunes in to our programming here on Our Take. Another message, this one, in response to the video at the end of the show, the people of Africa are amazing and can do anything. And of course, that Twitter message is referencing our World videos. And remember, we are always online, so join in and leave a comment on Facebook or send us a tweet. And you can, of course, always follow our conversation at #OurTakeArise. Now it is time to take a moment and look at something we here on the Our Take team consider special in our world. In today's Our World video, we actually hear the sounds of the kalumbu, a one-stringed musical bow instrument being played by one of the best kalimba players around. But pay close attention to the little boy on the guy's left getting his groove literally on. This comes to us from Zambia. Take a look. Thank you for watching Arise, Our Take. Of course, I will see you online till we meet again on our air for tomorrow's Our Take. Please keep it right here. We certainly enjoy hearing from you, but also seeing your comments online. And we certainly had a very lively show today. I am absolutely looking forward to hearing what our Twitter family and Facebook friends will be saying about the music video, Music Football, a video that spread like wildfire on the internet and got much praise, but also some criticism as well. So hopefully we'll hear some comments from people who appreciated hearing from the songwriter herself, but also hearing from one of the critics. And also tomorrow you can look forward on Our Take, part 3 of our 3-part series, Women in the Digital World. And again, I'm Christina Brown. Please join us and join the conversation online on Facebook and on Twitter. Until then, we'll see you back here tomorrow.